What have I done? What have we got here? This certainly doesn't look like an Apple device, what you'd normally expect me to be holding in my hand. In fact, this is as far from an Apple device as I could probably get, and my switch to Android has been a very interesting one. In fact, for the past probably 3 or 4 weeks, I've been really trying to find a suitable smartphone to make my transition from iOS to Android complete. And in this video, or in this live broadcast, I will be telling you all about how I've been finding my switch to Android, and in fact give you my review of the OnePlus 5T. And this is a real user review. I'm going to be sharing with you what I like, what I dislike, and there is a couple of things that I'm not too keen on, and also sharing with you some photos, because I've been getting a lot of messages via Twitter saying this is a mid-range phone, and also saying that the camera is lacking on the OnePlus 5T. And I'll share with you some photos that might well change your mind about that. So before we actually start the review good and proper, I did have a question come in, and it was basically asking me to cover some details about the OnePlus 5T screen resolution. So I'm going to do that first and then come back to my main review good and proper, and then of course I'll take some questions a little bit later on in the chat as well. So the question was, we've got a 6.01 inch or 6-inch screen here. It's an AMOLED screen. It supports sRGB and DCI-P3, and it's also got a lower resolution than some of you would like for a 6-inch screen. It's 2160 pixels high and 1080 pixels across, and we would probably expect on a flagship smartphone to see a 1440p screen instead of a 1080p screen. And a lot of you are asking me, and in fact this one particular person actually said, can I talk about that, and is it bad? Is it necessary to have a higher resolution? This looks like, to me, a very clear screen. Nice and sharp. I can't see any sort of pixelization or any sort of jagged edges. When I'm viewing back video, it's fine. Text looks fine. Photos look fine. So my answer to that, my direct answer to it, is that this resolution is absolutely fine. Of course, if you zoom into something, it might look a tiny bit crisper on a 1440 screen, but for me it looks absolutely awesome. In fact, let me give you a close-up look of this. If the camera will focus, you're probably not going to really be able to see what I'm talking about, and the screen doesn't flicker in sort of real life. You're probably just seeing some flicker because of the refresh rate on your video, but it is very, very evenly lit. A really nice screen. There's no color shift that I can see, and I'm just really happy with that aspect of the smartphone. Now, I will come back to some questions a little bit later, but I want to cover off some main points on this before dealing with some of your questions. And thank you, by the way, to everyone who's tuned in to see this review live. Now, this is a little bit of a different review than my regular Android smartphone reviews, mainly because this is now my daily driver. So the iPhone 7 Plus is no longer in daily use. I have still got it because I need to keep an iOS device so that I can share my opinion with you about iOS when updates and new features happen. But this has been in my pocket every single day, and I'm a week into my use with it. And I want to start off with a talk about the battery life. I think the battery life on this is more than acceptable. I am on 80%. I did a quick top up before I did this video broadcast. Before I did that top up, I had charged this overnight. My day started round about 6 AM this morning. We're now at coming up to 5 PM, so 11 hours in, and I was on about 62%, and that's with a medium use today. So battery life on this absolutely fine. Speaker quality, the speaker is very, very clear, so when I'm watching videos back, the speaker sounds really nice and crisp. I just wish it would go up in volume a tiny bit louder. It's not the loudest of speakers. I've already talked to you about the actual screen quality. The performance has been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. This has got 8 GB of RAM, 128 GB of storage, and I found that the actual performance, thanks to the Snapdragon 835 processor, has been very, very snappy. I've had multiple applications running in the background and running all the time. I haven't had to sort of quit out of them or refresh anything or do a restart. Everything has been working really well and a really nice turn of speed. I've also played a few games. I've mainly been using it for sort of communication, social networking, etc, etc. But for the most part, I haven't had any sort of lag issues, any slowdown, any stutters, anything like that at all. It has been a really smooth experience. Now I will talk to you a little bit about the differences between what I'm experiencing with Android over iOS, some of the shortcomings, and also some of the things that I really like, and I'll come on to that a bit later. But let's concentrate a bit more on the hardware first of all. So the fit and finish of everything, I have got the supplied case on this at the moment, but the fit and finish of the phone is absolutely superb. It feels very, very comfortable in the hand. This is a 6-inch device, don't forget, and it doesn't feel top heavy at all. The fingerprint sensor resides on the back in exactly the right spot. I have got face unlock set up on this as well, and that works really quickly. But I found myself, instead of just unlocking with the power button on the side, I found myself just tapping. So it's locked at the moment. I just tap the fingerprint sensor, and it's just a more natural thing for me to do rather than turn on by the power button and then wait for the face unlock to actually unlock the device. So really quick, I'm going to show that one more time. So this is locked and then unlocked. Very, very quick indeed. So the overall quality feel of this is very good. Even in the case, it's even worse out of the case. This is one of the negatives. It does feel very slippery, and I never drop my smartphones, but I almost dropped this once. So it is a very slippery sort of customer, and I think that's down to it being very thin, sort of very curved on the back. So I will be getting another case for this, just to make it a bit more grippy, something with some texture on the side perhaps. So that's the sort of hardware quality covered. Charging, no wireless charging, it's via USB-C, but it charges nice and quick, so I've been really pleased with that. Watching back videos on this screen is a really nice experience as well. I'm going to have to say it, there's no notch in the top. All of the sensors and the camera are just in this bezel at the top, and that's mirrored on the bottom. Nice thin bezels either side as well. One of the things I didn't like is the silencer switch on the side. Now I'm used to having that on my iPhone 7 Plus. Now I say I don't like it. I like having the switch there, being able to sort of push this switch up into the up position and have it silent the phone, so no notifications coming through at all, is really nice. But it's just the actuation. There seems to be this middle section where there's some resistance, and so I've got do not disturb and then silent, and I feel like that middle notch shouldn't be there. So it's got like a middle position as well. So in the middle position it's like on do not disturb, but there's just a little bit of movement still in the switch. I just wish it just had two positions, either notifications and i.e. the speaker on, and then a do not disturb silent option as well, rather than that third option in the middle. That's just me. It just feels a little bit vague in the way I'm using that particular switch. Call quality. After all, this is a phone. We use it to make and take calls. The earpiece at the top here, so the one that you're going to listen to the person on the other end of the phone, isn't the best I've heard. It's more than acceptable. It's not a deal breaker by any means. It's just got a very slight sort of hiss on it. So when the person starts talking and then when they stop, you can sort of hear the speaker try and shut down. But again, it's a very, very nitpicky thing to pick up on. The actual vocal quality of the microphone pickup is very, very good indeed. And with regards to video capture, and I'm going to show you some photos that I've actually taken with this smartphone, but with regards to video capture, the audio that accompanies the video is very good indeed, and the 4K video quality is nice and detailed. You do need a fair bit of light on your subject matter, so in darker situations the video is just acceptable. Well, it's above average, but more of an acceptable level of quality. When you've got something really well lit, outdoors especially, in nice sort of bright weather, nice bit of sunshine, it really does excel. Really nice video quality. So anyway, before I move on and show you the photos I took, let's dive into the chat here. Now we have got live chat. If you want your question or comment highlighted, the super chat feature is there as well. But let's just scroll back a bit and see what questions we have got. So we've got Scott Burgess. Why do you personally think Apple can now charge over £1,000 for a device when you can get devices such as this for half the price and just as good? Well, you normally pay a premium for Apple devices anyway, and I truly and strongly believe the iPhone 10, it is well known that it was due to be released next year and they brought it out early. And I think Apple are just testing the market with the iPhone 10 and seeing if people will still buy it at either £1,000, or if you go for the higher capacity model in the UK, I think it's £1,149. So I think it's a test on the consumer, I truly do. And we've seen flagship smartphones creep up in price gradually from other manufacturers, but not quite as high as Apple are testing the market. So I think it's all a test at the moment. We've also got Techzilla. Any company in theory can charge anything they like, but does it affect their sales? I'm not defending Apple at all, but they get away with it. If OnePlus charged that much for their devices, ? Yeah, it's very true. Apple seem to get away with it. I'm going to talk to you a bit about my transition and why I think Apple sort of get away with it. And I struggled. I've tested devices before and almost switched to Android. And I kept coming back to the iPhone and iOS, mainly because of the ecosystem I live in. I use Apple desktops, I use Apple laptops. I liked the sort of handoff thing as well, where messages would come across, where websites would come across. So I really struggled with my Switch previously, and I struggled with my Switch on this occasion as well. And what I did this time around is I actually put my iPhone away. So when it wasn't on my desk for testing purposes, it was in a drawer. And I think that made a big difference to my experience. I still missed certain things. Now, what I missed mainly was FaceTime and iMessage. But I've managed to transition my main sort of circle of family and friends over to using WhatsApp and Google Duo or Allo for communications, as well as regular text as well. And that stopped me missing that quite so much. I got over the handoff thing with websites because I used it on very rare occasions. And one of the things I really liked on this, because I had so many issues with iOS 11, was switching the email apps. So the Gmail app, not so much. I'm sort of struggling with that still, purely because when you look at messages, you have to flick between different inboxes, and the social ones are split off into another panel. And then you've got promotional emails split off, so you have to go in various places to delete them, unless I'm doing it wrong. But basically I discovered Blue Mail, which is this blue mail icon just here. And Blue Mail, I've just got one account in there at the moment. I'm going to be adding more, and that's a really nice email experience. I'm also using Flamingo for Twitter, Pocket Cast for my podcast listening, Keep instead of Apple Notes, so Google's Keep app, which I'd used before anyway, and then the regular apps like Instagram, Chrome, etc. for the rest of my use on the smartphone. And all of the main apps are available on here, such as for my banking, security, home devices, etc. So the transition app-wise has been really good. And one thing I've noticed with the email app, when I was on iOS 11, I had a lot of freezing in the mail app, and also I would select multiple messages, and if it did allow me to delete them, when I reopen the application, the messages would still appear, or they'd still be on my desktop or laptop. With this, when I delete the emails, so I go through many, checking them off, and then just delete all the ones I don't want to read, they do actually get deleted, so that's been really nice. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why Apple gets away with it. My feeling during my transition period for the first couple of days, and I had somebody tweet me about this as well, saying I really don't think I can move away from iPhone because I'd miss it too much. I really did miss the iPhone, and I think it's in sort of people's minds that they need the flagship device, or they need the Apple experience, and they need this so-called quality that Apple deliver. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing Apple. I really am not, because I still believe that the iPhone 7 Plus, the iPhone 8 Plus and the smaller versions and the iPhone 10 still edge it on camera quality, which is very, very important to me. So the camera quality really is something that you're getting a really good deal with on the Apple devices. But it was just in my mind throughout this whole transition that I really needed an Apple device. I was sort of missing out on something. But as the days went on, and I'm now in my 7th day now, I'm not missing the iPhone anymore. I'm thoroughly enjoying the OnePlus 5T, and I'm still learning my way around Android properly and OnePlus's overlay on the top. So still finding my way around things, still finding settings, etc. But it's getting easier every single day, and as I say, I'm not missing it at all. So let's take a few more questions, then we're going to take a look at how this camera performs. And there are a lot of questions, so thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in. It's really good of you. Andy Roworth says, hi Dave, what about the battery life? I mentioned that a little bit earlier in this broadcast. The battery life has been fine. I was on roughly about 62%, something like that. And that was from when I got up in the morning till just before I started this broadcast. I would easily say you get a day and a half between charges if you're a medium user. If you're a really heavy user, you're probably still going to charge it at the end of each day, just so you've got that peace of mind it's ready for the next day. We've also got a question here. Raymond Moore says, Dave, why Apple sells a brand new device with a buggy and beta software? Well, we are testing it. We're testing it for a lot of companies now. We're testing their software and features. In fact, Microsoft, albeit they only released it to their Insider program, released a new feature today with tabbed windows that sort of collect all of your applications, browser windows in one easy to manage place. So they're testing something with their users, albeit in a sort of a more closed program. But we do that for a lot of companies without knowing it. But it's when the bugs creep in that people start to make a fuss about testing these features. Sean Major says, still using my LG V10, which is an awesome smartphone, and find it hard to find a camera replacement as the LG V30 isn't released in Sweden. Well, the LG V10, superb camera performance. The LG V30 sort of dropped the camera quality a little bit for me. I still really like the LG G5 and the G6 in that manufacturer's range for really good camera performance. You don't always have to get the latest smartphone. A lot of people fall into that trap as well, of thinking they've got to buy the latest one. Deepak Murthy says the new Pixel 2 phones have the best cameras, maybe, and it is subjective. But the Note 8 and iPhone 10, 8 Plus are not far behind. All flagships have excellent cameras. I tend to agree, and that's a very fair comment. A lot of people say one camera's better than the other. It depends how you like your photos to appear. And that's a very appropriate point for me to switch over to another viewpoint for you and show you some of the photos I've taken with the OnePlus 5T. And this first one was actually a couple of Christmas ornaments that we got for this year. And I think this is a really nice photo. Now, the OnePlus 5T does also offer up like a defocus of the background mode, like a portrait mode on its rear facing camera, but this was taken without using that mode, and you can still see in the background here behind the two ornaments at the front that there's still some defocus in the background, and the distance between the foreground subject and the background subject was not that great, so I think it did a really good job there. Now, I did try the depth of focus or defocus mode on the OnePlus 5T, and it was really weird the way it worked in the preview window, but once you'd actually taken the photo, it did a very convincing job. This is just not a crop, but this is another more close-up picture of the same ornament, and you can see a nice amount of detail in the sort of area painted around the red jacket, and again you can see how it's really blurred out that background nicely. Colours on this as well, not oversaturated, just really natural looking colours. And then I was eating a scone or scone, you can say either or either way, and again I just think this has got a nice amount of detail in it. If you look at the sultana at the front, which was roughly the focus point on this sultana, and then you look at the background where we've got like the bready cake area, really nice. And that poses a question that you can actually answer for me in the chat. Is a scone a cake or a bun or a piece of bread? Answer that in the chat for me. But I digress. Let's move on to the last photo I want to share with you. And this is just a nice close-up of a flower. This is like a cut flower. And you can see the flowers and plants in the background here. Again, have got a nice sort of blur to them. And you can see the focus was right in the centre of this particular flower. So I think that the camera has done a really good job. I think it's a really good performer. And I'm not going to talk about specs and megapixels. There are two. They've got different apertures. The front facing camera also does a decent job if you're taking selfies. But I just think it does a good job. And people say it is lacking. Now I am testing another smartphone at the moment. And I'll be doing my full review of that in about a few days time. Sort of maybe early next week. A lot of people have been really hating on the smartphone in this particular gamer orientated smartphone, which I think is really unfair, because I've taken some superb photos with it, and I think if you put the camera in the right hands, you get the lighting right, the composition right, and you get the correct sort of distance between the subject and the camera, then you're going to get a good result. It's all about the person behind the lens as well. Of course, if you've got a really crappy camera, it's going to take bad photos, but I think that all smartphones nowadays have decent enough cameras to get a good result out of them if you light the subject properly. And those photos I just showed you were taken in just normal lighting. I just had one light on, so they weren't lit with studio lights or anything. They were just sort of normal room light. They were taken in the evening as well, so it was no natural light coming in as well. So a really good performance on the camera. So anyway, let's take a look at some more questions and comments. Raymond Moore says the Razer phone's camera quality is overly criticised. Stay tuned for next week's video. Chris Bryson saying scone is a cake. Scott saying it's a bun. Deepak saying it's a bun. Let's just say it's a scone. But they are certainly tasty. And Texilla says, Dave, I'm disappointed. Scone with no cream or jam. We are British, lol. Only kidding. You only saw that before the cream and jam went in. So enough said on that. John Bushell says a bun. Apple's bugs don't justify new features. One step forward and two back. Ouch. Ouch. That's all I can say to that. Deepak Murthy, which phone has the better camera, 5T or Mate 10 Pro? Again, a really difficult question to answer because it depends what you're looking for in your camera and in your photos. I've been testing the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. In fact, it's sitting on the desk behind me here. And I would say it defocuses the background, so it isolates the subject a little bit better than the OnePlus 5T. Maybe a little tiny bit more detail. But when you look at the photo as a whole, I think they're pretty evenly matched. I don't think there's a lot in it. If you were comparing maybe these two, the OnePlus 5T and the Mate 10 Pro, or maybe the iPhone 10, then I would say that the iPhone 10 edges it on quality. So these Android smartphones, very, very close. And with the exception of the Pixel 2 XL, there's not a lot that still edges the quality of the iPhone 10. So it says here also from James Nelson, what about pictures taken in low light? It's okay. It's not fantastic, but it does an okay job. In really dark conditions, it doesn't do a good job at all. But just in low light, it does an acceptable job. And again, you can use the flash, or you can be very creative when you're in low light. One of the big tips I've always given people is if you're taking a picture of yourself and maybe somebody you've gone out with for the evening, stand in front of a shop window and let the light coming out of the shop window light you. And then you get nice subject matter, nice sort of lighting on the subject, and then the background is just sort of normal sort of darkness, so it exposes the subject very nice. That's a really good tip, that. We've also got Sean Major saying pictures look good, but is the Mate 10 Pro better or worse? Well, as I just said, I can't quantify it because it depends what you're looking for in a camera. Is it better or worse? Only you can judge that if you see some photos side by side, because you'll have a preference. From what I've seen when I've been taking photos with both, and don't forget at the moment I've got the OnePlus 5T in, I've got the Mate 10 Pro and also the Razer phone. If I put the photos side by side, I'd be happy with any of them. With regard to the software that runs the camera, then I prefer the software on the OnePlus 5T at the moment, so the shooting experience. But the actual result, they're all pretty evenly matched. There's pros and cons to all three of them. Techzilla says low light and darkness really separates cameras, as all give great photos in good lighting. That is true, but only if low light photography is of importance to you, and this would apply to normal cameras as well. If you've got a normal camera or an interchangeable lens camera, then depending upon what your style of shooting is, you might buy a really fast lens to give you really good low light capability. We can't do that, unfortunately. With smartphones, we're stuck with what we have from the offset. So anyway, back to the phone again. Let's talk a little bit more about my experience with this so far. I've been really enjoying the screen. I want to talk to you a bit more about this screen. I like the 18:9 format ratio. I think a lot of smartphones are doing this lately. It seems to be a current trend, and I do like this ratio. I like a taller smartphone, or at the very least, when I was using the iPhone 7 Plus, I like a larger screen phone. The fact that with this one we're getting a 6-inch display but very narrow bezels on the sides and top and bottom, it makes it very manageable, very pocketable still. Some of the smartphones have got 5.5 inch, 5.7 inch and 6-inch screens and not very pocketable at all. There was one phone, what was it, that I struggled with recently? Oh dear, the model escapes me, but I tested one just recently and it was not pocketable at all. It was sticking out the top of my pocket and my jeans, not comfortable to carry around, and thus I wasn't that impressed with it. I've also really liked the viewing angles on this, and this is at low brightness at the moment as well. Somebody asked me if it's good to view in sort of bright sunlight outdoors, and if I just put this up to full brightness and try and show you as I do it. So this is now full brightness. Look at that. Whoa! The camera will try and adjust for it, obviously, but it is a very, very bright screen. That is at full brightness, and it is more than viewable. God, it's actually blinding. I need sunglasses to view it at full brightness, but it is more than viewable when you're outdoors. A very, very good screen. Now, I also had problems with the blue colour shift on the iPhone 10. I also had problems, or not so much problems, but slight problems with the quality of the Pixel 2 XL screen. Although I didn't get one into review, I actually experienced one for a good hands-on session for about 40 minutes, and the screen on that was really bad off-axis. I also saw a video on this before it arrived of somebody viewing it at this angle and saying that it created like a rainbow effect. Well, I can say that it's a really nice screen. It's not too cool looking, so not on the blue side. It's not too warm looking, so not on the yellow side. It's just sort of a neutral colour in between. Because it's AMOLED, we still get those nice sort of punchy colours on the icons, but I can't see a lot of colour shift. There is a tiny, tiny bit. I mean, if I'm looking off axis, and really off axis, of course I lose the actual image a tiny bit. It just goes very, very slightly grayer if it's off axis, and that's at a real acute angle. But I see no rainbow effect. I don't see any large blue colour shift on the screen. It's a very nice screen as well, as I said at the beginning of this video. Nice and detailed, crisp text, and when you're viewing back photos, let me get one of those photos up that I took earlier and that I shared with you. Let me show you this one actually on the screen of the phone. So this is the one I showed you earlier of the two little models there. If I put that nice and close so it focuses in, you can see a really good quality screen, and even off axis. So I'll show you the viewing angles. That's quite an acute angle now. It still looks very, very good indeed. So it's a really good screen. They've done a fantastic job on this screen. So anyway, let's go back to the comments here and have a look at what else has come in. I really do appreciate you all tuning in for this particular broadcast. We've got here saying, Techzilla saying, yes, I agree, Dave, it depends on how the end user uses the camera, and that is the same with any camera, smartphone or a DSLR or mirrorless or a compact camera. It all depends on if you know how to use it, you know how to get the best out of the device that you've got in your hands. Lamar Riddle says, I have the LG V30 and I put a glass screen protector on and already have a crack that appeared under the protector. Have you heard of that happening? And do you have any protector brands that you recommend? Oh my goodness, that is terrible news. I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't have any particular brand that I recommend. I do like the Rink range. So Rink do some clear film protectors. Anker do glass protectors for some devices, and I've always found those to be really good. And for the iPhone range, again, I don't know if they do them for the LG V30, but Kudos make a range of screen protectors, which I've always found very good. But I don't have any sort of draw to one particular brand. Sean Major says 1 or 2 years warranty, easy to make repairs. I'm pretty sure these come with a 1 year warranty. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. In the UK, we get 6 years warranty on electronic items anyway, so that doesn't protect you against accidental damage, but it just protects you about a device becoming faulty. Up to 6 years. The rules change along the way. I won't go into that here. That's a subject for another video, but I believe it's just like a 1 year standard warranty on this. Deepak Murthy says, are you happy with the reception quality on the OnePlus 5T? With regards to cellular signal, absolutely fine. Really very, very good indeed. Nice strong signal. I also connected this up via Bluetooth to my car. It connected with no issues at all. I also used it to set up the Google mini speaker, the home mini speaker behind me here. No problems at all. With regards to Wi-Fi, absolutely fine. I've had no issues with signal drop or anything. You won't see the bars up there at the moment because I've got this switched to airplane mode. And we've also got a question here from the unexpected. Good afternoon, Dave. Which version of Android does the OnePlus 5T and Mate 10 Pro use? I'm currently running Android 6 on my Mate S. I think this is Android version 7.1.1, if memory serves me right. We will be getting an upgrade to version 8, and the Mate 10 Pro is already on 8, I believe. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But this is nice anyway. One of the things I noticed on this, so I can actually tap, I don't know if you can see it, if I can get it in focus, but I can actually tap and hold an icon and I get the little contextual menu pop out so that I can make a selection without going into the app. So I can go straight into creating a new note, for example. So it's got nice sort of features anyway. I don't think I'm sort of missing or lacking anything. Techzilla says, Dave, if someone already has the OnePlus 5, is the 5T worth upgrading to? That's a hard call. From what I've heard, the cameras have been tweaked a little bit. We've got a different format screen. I don't know if the screen quality is different because I never had a OnePlus 5. I'd probably say it's not a necessity. It's a nice upgrade. If you like the brand and you want to stick with the same brand, then maybe it's worth it. But I really can't say because I've had no experience with the OnePlus 5. Neo TV, OnePlus 5T, iPhone 8 Plus or Samsung S8 Plus. Can't say again. It's entirely subjective. You might be drawn to one brand or one operating system. If you like iOS, then it's the iPhone 8 Plus, definitely. If you like Samsung products, then the S8 Plus. I would say the Samsung S8 Plus camera is probably equal to the OnePlus 5T, and from memory, I would say that this maybe has a slightly better battery life, and I think a very slightly better screen. Didn't like the way that the edges of the Samsung S8 Plus look, but that's just me personally. You might like the looks of the Samsung phone a little bit better. Matthew Geeson says, how many milliamps is the battery? I think it's 3,000 something. I'm going to find that out for you. It's a 3,300 milliampere battery. So in direct answer to your question, 3,300 milliamperes doesn't sound that much really for a phone with this size screen, but it seems to be lasting absolutely fine. Raymond Moore, will OnePlus 5T guarantee to get future updates from Google for the next couple of years? I've seen nothing official on that. We'll definitely get Android 8, and I think the OnePlus 5 is getting that as well, so I would think we'd probably get the next version as well. Certainly the hardware's up to it, so I would expect we'd get at least 2 updates, but again, I've not seen anything official on that front. So anyway, let me talk to you one last time about the quality of this and just about my feelings. Of course, I've still got this, I told you earlier, and if you have got eagle eyes, you might be able to see something in the background there. Just saying, I put a tweet out a few days ago. Oh dear. And the tweet got the retweets it required. Anyway, this is my iPhone 7 Plus, which hasn't got the SIM card in it. I haven't been using it at all for the past 5 days. Or did I? I think I might have used it once to take a photo of this, because I couldn't take a photo of this with the OnePlus 5T. But this is what they look like side by side. Let's give you a side by side comparison. So very similar sizes. If we place this on the top though, you'll see, even though these have got cases on, the OnePlus 5T is very slightly narrower, but it's about the same height, but the screen is obviously bigger. Not doing a very good job of showing you this. The screen on the OnePlus is definitely bigger than the iPhone 7 Plus. And as I mentioned earlier, initially I was missing some of the apps on this. If I was going to be completely honest, between and this is down to software, it's not down to the hardware, but Tweetbot I do still miss. I really like Tweetbot on iOS. Flamingo is still a fantastic Twitter client though. And as I say, I was missing FaceTime and iMessage, but I'm not missing it anymore. And I'm just looking at this to just do a comparison of the software. So we've got Podcasts app on here on iOS and Pocket Casts on the OnePlus 5T, which works absolutely fine. I'm more than happy with that. And YouTube Studio, a little bit better on this. The YouTube app, a little bit better on this. Instagram, identical between the two. The Mail app, so Apple Mail on here, and I've got Gmail and Blue Mail on the OnePlus 5T, and by far a much better experience on Google Android and the OnePlus 5T. Notifications, I can't actually show you any notifications, but notifications on iOS 11, terrible. Didn't like it at all. Notifications on here, I can actually expand the notifications, see the emails, delete the emails without even going into the app, for example. Camera experience, still think this has got the slight edge on it, but very, very slight edge. The OnePlus 5T does a stellar job. I showed you those photos earlier, so I've got no worries about camera quality. Anything else to mention on the software front? Oh, rotation. So the rotation bug, and it doesn't rotate on the home screen on here, but it does on here. But the rotation bug within apps on iOS 11 that was plaguing me for ages, it was absolutely terrible. It was so frustrating. No rotation issues at all when I'm watching back videos, using apps that work in landscape mode, and then rotating the phone back round. Absolutely rock solid performance on the OnePlus 5T. So enough of the comparisons. I still do like the Apple hardware, don't get me wrong. The hardware is top notch, really good build quality. It was iOS 11 that frustrated me and got me looking at the Android ecosystem. I've got plenty more smartphones into test at the moment. As I said, this is the OnePlus 5T review, but just to let you know, I have got my review of the Huawei Mate 10 Pro coming up, probably latter part of this week. I've also got my review of the Razer phone coming up next week sometime, and I've also got the HTC U11 Plus coming in. Will any of those make me switch from the OnePlus 5T? I'm not sure, because I'm really liking it. And the price of this, £449 for the lower capacity model, £499 in the UK for this 128 gig model with 8GB of RAM and a Snapdragon 835 processor and really good cameras and an amazing screen. I think is an absolute steal. I think it's appropriately priced. I think a lot of these other flagships are creeping up into price far too much, and for the price I think this is a really, really good choice. So anyway, that is it for my review of the OnePlus 5T. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a fantastic close out to the week, fantastic weekend as well. Wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next one.